Bold opinions, real evidence, and lasting impact. This is Rod's Scholarly Opinion. I am your host, Rodney McNeil, where we break down the real issues shaping our world through a lens that is opinionated, yet grounded in credible evidence and critical thought. The yellow bird has taken its final flight. I'm not speaking about the American goldfinch, a canary. I'm talking about the end of an era for Spirit Airlines. After 34 years in commercial aviation, the ultra-low-cost carrier shut down operations, affecting more than 17,000 employees and leaving thousands of passengers stranded across the country. The collapse unfolded rapidly on May 2nd, 2026, as flights were oddly canceled overnight and throughout the day. Pilots shared bittersweet farewells as they prepared for their final landings. Spirit Airlines once served destinations across the United States, Latin America, and the Caribbean, with popular routes to cities such as Miami, Orlando, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Cancun, and Montego Bay. But before Spirit became known for budget travel, it began as something entirely different. In 1964, Ned Humboldt founded Clipper Trucking Company in Detroit, Michigan. The company transported cargo and automotive parts. As the business expanded its logistic operations, it began integrating air delivery with ground transportation. In 1974, the company became Ground Air Transfer Inc. Nearly a decade later, in 1983, the company evolved again into Charter One. The airline focused on affordable leisure travel packages to entertainment and gambling destinations, such as Atlantic City, Las Vegas, and the Bahamas. After another decade of growth and expansion, Charter One rebranded in 1992 as Spirit Airlines. With new aircraft and expanded capabilities, the company officially entered the commercial airline industry. For years, the low-cost carrier model worked, but by 2020, the turbulence began. There had been conversations for years about Spirit's financial struggles, but how exactly did the airline reach this point? What ultimately caused its downfall? To understand that, we must return to the COVID-19 pandemic. Like many industries, commercial aviation was devastated by the global shutdown. For nearly 2 months, air travel came close to a complete standstill. May 2020 became one of the worst months in airline history, with travel demand dropping by nearly 95%. Restrictions and travel bans continued well into 2021. As a result, airlines operated on severely reduced schedules, and Spirit was no exception. Between 2020 and its eventual closure, the airline reportedly accumulated $2.5 billion in losses. In 2020 alone, Spirit's revenue dropped nearly 50% compared to the previous year. Simply put, the airline was losing money faster than it could recover. COVID-19 crippled Spirit's ultra-low-cost business model. Its strategy depended on high passenger volume and low fares. But when travelers stopped flying, the structure became unsustainable. In November 2024, Spirit filed for bankruptcy, and financial instability continued into 2025. Yet despite the setbacks, the airline still hoped to survive. That hope came in the form of a merger. On July 28th, 2022, JetBlue and Spirit publicly announced plans to merge after JetBlue won a bidding war against Frontier Airlines. Under the agreement, JetBlue would acquire Spirit for $3.8 billion. For Spirit, the merger represented a possible lifeline. However, the Department of Justice opposed the deal, arguing that it would reduce competition within the airline industry. It would increase ticket prices, which is unfair to the people. The case eventually moved to federal court. In March 2024, U.S. District Judge William G. Young blocked the merger, ruling that it violated Section 7 of the Clayton Antitrust Act. The Clayton Antitrust Act is designed to prevent mergers that could substantially lessen competition or create monopolies. In simple terms, the government argued that consumers benefit from having more airline choices and lower cost options in the market. Without the merger, Spirit lost one of its best opportunities for financial recovery. But the problems didn't stop there. Global instability added even more pressure. The recent conflict involving Iran and Israel contributed to rising jet fuel prices, forcing Spirit to significantly spend more on fuel during their final months of operation. An additional $100 million was spent on fuel in the months of March and April. To break that down, that is $1.64 million in fuel added to their daily expenses. Inflation and uncertainty made it nearly impossible to predict long-term operating costs. In a last-minute attempt to survive, Spirit reportedly pursued a government bailout worth $500 million. However, the plan collapsed for several reasons. During Spirit's previous bankruptcy proceedings, Citadel and other lenders had provided financial support to keep the airline operational, but by April 2026, the support had ended. Under the proposed bailout structure, the government would have received repayment priority through a debtor in possession loan arrangement. Spirit's existing lenders rejected the proposal because it would place them behind the government in repayment order. At that point, many investors no longer viewed Spirit as profitable or sustainable. The airline still possessed valuable assets, that is, aircrafts, engines, spare parts, and property, but the company itself was collapsing. That is where liquidation entered the picture. Liquidation is the process of selling a company's assets for cash after operations end. Spirit's plane, equipment, and infrastructure would now be sold primarily to corporate buyers and aviation companies. But then something unexpected happened. Just hours after Spirit officially ceased operations, voice actor and future CEO of Spirit 2.0, Hunter Peterson, publicly floated an idea online. What if the people bought Spirit Airlines? Peterson suggested that if 20% of the 250 million adults in the United States, that being 50 million people, contributed the average price of a Spirit ticket, which is about $60, the public could potentially raise billions of dollars to secure the airlines. His proposal quickly gained traction online. What began as a joke evolved into a surprisingly serious conversation. Peterson launched a website, letsbuyspirit.com, later added letsbuyspiritair.com, allowing supporters to pledge money toward the effort. Funny enough, he goes to dinner and comes back to an insane amount of money promised. $2,315,752 to be exact. 4,817 people pledged to give money on a future date, and the average amount of $481 per patron. The idea was simple but ambitious: create an airline owned by the people instead of wealthy corporations. Naturally, questions followed. How would ownership work? Could the public trust his leadership? Would outside investors eventually take control? Peterson stated, no matter how much money you give, you get one vote, and all votes are equal. As far as the dividends, based on what a person gives, will be equitable, meaning in theory, the more you give, the bigger your portion of the profits are. He also acknowledged that many of the financial and legal details still needed to be worked out with attorneys and advisors. Even Peterson himself admitted he was learning in real time. So, could this actually work? In my opinion, Peterson possesses a dream, a goal, and a vision. Since the age of 7, he dreamed of owning an airline. Although he admitted running an airline is not profitable, he has momentum, public support, and the willingness to admit what he does not know. Former Spirit employees, including 5,500 flight attendants, reportedly support the idea because they want to preserve jobs and rebuild the airline differently. Peterson has openly discussed the need for experienced aviation executives, lawyers, public relations teams, and financial experts. On May 8th, he announced that he has secured enough funding to begin legal efforts toward making a bid for Spirit's assets. But rebuilding an airline is far more complicated than simply buying airplanes. Running an airline requires enormous financial resources, regulatory approval, infrastructure, and operational expertise. An airline must obtain an air operator certificate to prove it can safely conduct flights. Approval from the Department of Transportation is also required before tickets can legally be sold. There are safety audits, operational manuals, maintenance programs, and staffing requirements. An airline needs qualified professionals such as chief pilots, maintenance managers, safety directors, dispatchers, and regulatory compliance teams. It also needs access to airport terminals, landing slots, hangars, spare parts inventory, fuel contracts, insurance, baggage systems, and software capable of managing bookings and pricings around the clock. Then there is a crew scheduling, weather tracking, route planning, and aircraft maintenance. The list is massive. That is why timing matters. If Peterson and his supporters want to avoid building an airline entirely from scratch, they would need to acquire Spirit as an operating corporate entity before its assets are fully sold off during liquidation. That includes licenses, infrastructure, and Spirit's headquarters in Dania Beach, Florida. But once liquidation accelerates, those pieces begin to disappear quickly. Aircrafts are auctioned, equipment is sold, contracts expire, operations dissolve. The clock is already ticking. Still, the idea of publicly influenced airline is fascinating. Could an airline owned by the people disrupt the aviation industry? Peterson must move quickly to gain the attention of the right people to secure Spirit's assets. Also, he needs some rich founders to support the initiative of an airline owned by the people. They not only have money, but resources and a network of people in favorable positions. Mark Cuban was a name of interest Peterson desires to work with. His standards is Spirit 2.0 must be owned and controlled by the people, not rich partners, nor corporate entities. An airline owned by the people could work and disrupt the aviation industry. An airline owned by the people or the public will serve the public interests of the people. Think lower airfares, better public service, stable work conditions, and job security. The priority then is to serve the people, shifting the industry from profit-driven goals to beneficial support. It is insane to think an airline owned by the people could work. It does not sound crazier than a one-way trip to Mars. This could work if Peterson's ideas paired with the right logistics, regulation, economics, and execution can come together in favor of his business model. The question is no longer whether people support the dream. The real question is whether the people can revive Spirit. This has been another episode of Rod's Scholarly Opinion, where we challenge perspectives, demand evidence, and speak on what truly matters. I am Rodney McNeil. Stay informed, stay critical, and I will catch you on the next one.